Hello everyone. In this session, we are going to discuss about clay mineralogy. Yeah, this is one particular chapter wherein we'll be studying clays slightly in detail. Right. So this will be giving you an idea like some soils, when they come in contact with water, they expand a lot or bulge in volume, and some of them, when they are removed of the water, they shrink a lot. This kind of behavior is very clearly seen as far as black cotton soil is concerned. So, if the soil is of this kind in the field where we have to construct buildings, obviously one has to be very careful. That's why this particular chapter, which will be giving you an idea about how clays play an important role. Okay, we'll go into the details. This is black cotton soil. In the figure, if you can just see like how it behaves. Here it has dried, the water is taken off. Because of that, there are large cracks that will be there. This is because of the shrinking. The moment you put the water, everything gets filled up, right? We'll see in detail about all these things now. Okay, here I have started with soil formation. Quickly, we'll go through all these information, all this information. Soil formation and soil structure, especially we are concentrating on soil structure. Anyway, soil deposits on the earth's surface are a result of weathering and then transportation and deposition and again upheaval. Weathering will be because of mechanical reason. It is called physical weathering, which will be leading to cohesion-less soils. And then, what are cohesion-less soils? They are sands and gravel. So you can just see that mechanical weathering leads to cohesion-less soils, sand and gravel. Mechanical or physical weathering is because of these are the reasons: temperature, water flow, ice, roofs, roots of vegetables, landslides, etc. Right? So these are the main reasons why the rocks will be broken into smaller and smaller particles, which will be leading to production of sand and gravel. Okay, the other type of weathering is chemical weathering, and then the chemical weathering leads to cohesive soils or fine grained soils. Now, what are the chemical weathering? It's hydration, oxidation, carbonation, and leaching effect. So one can understand weathering. If it is mechanical, it leads to coarse grained soil. If it is chemical weathering, then it leads to fine grained soils. Now the soils are broadly grouped into residual and transported. Residual will be having a shallow depth. In the sense, here what happens is a parent rock gets weathered and there itself it gets deposited. It won't move here and there. But if we have soil which is coming from a different point, it gets deposited for a longer duration. Obviously, it will be too deep in existence. Okay, the soils can be classified with the names alluvial, marine, lacustrine, depending upon how they have arrived or where they have got deposited. Alluvial is the name given to the soils which get deposited because of running water, that is especially a river. If river deposits the water in soil, then that particular soil is known as alluvial soil. If it is sea side or in the sea, if the soil get deposited, that soil is called marine soil. If the soil get deposited in the lakes, it is called lacustrine. Right? All this will be obviously transported soils, because the particles of soil will be brought along and then they get deposited in the water. Okay, next is sand dunes or dune sand or loess. This is because of wind transportation, because the particles will be moving because of the wind, so that's why it is called loess. And then best examples are sand dunes, right? Glacial, this is glacial transportation, because of that the soil is called glacial soil. Okay, this is about overall view of how it gets weathered, and then what are the names which are given to the soils, etc. Okay, here types of soil structure we are going to see. Now, just now we have seen that there is a coarse grained soil, and then coarse grained soil examples are sand and gravel. Now, if you look at sand and gravel, the particles are separate. They don't cling one to the other. They will be acting independently, isolatedly. That's why they are called as, or they are named as, single grained structure. All the particles will be independent of the other. They will be able to exist on their own. That's why they are called single grained structure. Honeycomb structure, it is in silt deposit. Silt is the particle in between clay and then sand, in between clay and sand, because size of the silt will be 0.002 mm to 0.075 mm, that is to say 2 microns to 75 microns is the size of silt. And then when this gets deposited, which is neither a coarse grained soil nor a very fine grained soil, such soil will be leading to honeycombed structure. How it looks, we are going to see that, right? Okay, this is the first one, single grain structure. Every particle comes and gets deposited on its own and then leads to a perfect stable condition. What I mean by that is, suppose a soil particle comes and gets fallen, and let us say this is the base, and then if the shape of the soil particle is like that, right? Now one more particle, if it comes, when it comes, suppose it touches like this won't be standing like that, it falls, and then it leads to a deposit like that. Next particle, when it comes, obviously it may be standing like that. Next particle like that. Every particle is quite stable on its own and it gets deposited, right? There is no precariously hanging or standing kind of thing. Whereas in case of honeycomb structure, in case of smaller particle which are neither clay nor they are too big to be called as a sand. Now what happens is, there are surface forces which will be coming into picture. Here when it is coarse grained soil, the mass of the particle itself will be playing a predominant role. Yeah, here I want to make one point clear. When there is a mass for it, obviously there will be weight for it, which we call it as mg, or gravitational force. Now the surface will also be attracted by number of forces, especially there are van der Waals forces, like that surface forces are there. But in coarse grained soils, make a note of this point, in coarse grained soil the surface forces are quite less predominant, and then weight or the mass is quite predominant. Because of that, the soil particles fall on their own and achieve a stable condition. Every particle achieves a stable condition. But when it becomes finer particle, for example the silt particle, what happens is, a particle comes and falls, maybe like that. Another particle, when it comes and then just gets in touch with this, it just stands, right? It won't fall down to a most stable condition. Another particle, when it comes, it will be, when it comes in touch with that, it will be hanging like that. Like that, there is another particle and another particle, like that. When it gets built up, there will be a lot of void which will be left, so which leads to a kind of structure, something like this. All these particles are one another attracted and joined, but there is a lot of in between space which is left hollow. That's why it is called honeycombed structure. This kind of structure will be found in silt deposits. Now next is flocculated or dispersed structure, which is found in clay deposits. Now very clear, right? So in clay deposits we are going to study in detail about that. Generally the clays will be having a flaky structure, a sheet like structure, and then most important is the surface will be having negative charge, whereas edges will be having positive charge. So if you look at a clay mineral colloidal soil, it will be flat like that. It will be having all negative charges on the surface over here, but these edges are plus. Now once a negative charge comes in contact with the positive charge, there will be a combination like that. So continuously face to edge. So this can be also called as face to edge structure, which is named as flocculated. So another name that you can name is face to edge structure. A very simple name that can be given, but why it happens, that you should understand, because of the existence of the positive and negative charges at the edges or at the surfaces make it happen. Right now there is one more structure which is called as a dispersed structure. This is flocculated structure, the third one. Dispersed structure, the same molecules, same particles of soil, when they are removed of these charges, when they are neutralized because of some ions, what happens is they will also be falling flat, right? So that structure where the existence of charges is removed, the plate like molecules will be falling parallel to one another, so then it is called parallel structure, or technically it is called dispersed structure. So here the clay minerals or mineral particles are flat or one another. Okay, next the fourth one is coarse grained skeletal structure and cohesive matrix. It is a combination of coarse grain as well as cohesive, so it is called composite. In the sense, it may be having something like honeycomb structure, but all this inside void is completely filled up with the small size particles like clay particles. In that case it becomes a composite, means it is combination of both coarse grained as well as fine grained soils. Okay, now a single grain structure, I have written a note on that. Gravitational forces are predominant. I have explained you what is gravitational forces. It is because of mass. Surface forces are too small. Particles to particle contact, particle to particle contact will be there here, right? Void's ratio depends upon the particle size. The bigger the particles, what happens is larger the voids that you will be having. Not voids ratio I am talking. The size of the voids look bigger because of the particle size. If the particle size becomes smaller, the size of the voids will be lesser in size, they look like. Okay. Now next is honeycomb structure associated with silts. Both the gravitational forces and surface forces play a role. Very high voids ratio, I explained to you all this, right? Next is flocculated and dispersed structure. The found in clay deposits, edge to edge or edge to face contact between the particles. This is because of the net electrical forces between the adjacent particles at the time of deposition. Now concentration of dissolved minerals leads to flocculated structures, and then dispersed structure is found in fresh water deposits. Okay. Okay, soil particles are composed of minerals, but the minerals can be classified as primary minerals and secondary minerals. Now, what are primary minerals? They are same as parent rock, mechanical weathering, bulky particles leading to gravitational forces predominance, which lead to sand and gravel production. That's what it is. Okay, primary minerals. The secondary minerals found in silts and clays, they are found in silts and clays. A result of chemical weathering consists of clay minerals or non-clay minerals. So clay minerals, whatever we are talking about clay mineralogy, clay minerals exist in secondary minerals, which will be because of chemical weathering. Now, clay minerals behave differently because of two reasons. One is the surface area, another one is surface charges. This area helps in holding water, nutrients, and pollutants also. So, this is a very important information that has to be taken care of, because in clay minerals what is important is surface area, and then how the surface area and the surface charges help is it helps in holding water first of all, and then in holding nutrient, which will be helpful for plants, and then which will be able to hold the pollutants also in case of pollution. Okay, now what is meant by specific surface area? I'll clear it now itself. So before going further, I'll tell you what is specific surface area. Make a note of this. Specific surface area. I don't write that full, but I'll explain you with a small example. Let us say this is 1 centimeter cube and has got this particular material has got, let us say, mass of 10 grams, let us say, right? Now what happens is the 10 grams is for one particular molecule which will be having, I have told you, 1 centimeter this way, 1 centimeter this way, 1 centimeter this way. The surface area on the top is 1 square centimeter. On the bottom it will be 1 square centimeter. On the front side it is 1 square centimeter. On the back, on the side, on the other side. So there are 6 faces. So to say, you have got 6 centimeter square as the surface area for 10 grams of material. So if you want surface area, that is specific surface area, which will be defined as surface area per unit mass. So specific surface area is what? Area. Specific surface area is area per unit mass. Area per unit mass. I'm sorry, I'm not able to write it properly, but anyway, I'm repeating number of times. You can make a note of this, that specific surface area is nothing but surface area per unit mass. Now I have taken an example wherein a cube of 1 centimeter size has got a mass of 10 grams, let us say. Then it will be 6 centimeter square per 10 grams. So if you want per gram, it will be equal to 0.6 centimeter square per gram. Centimeter square, units will be centimeter square per gram. Now by chance, look at this. If I cut this into 2 parts, let's say one half is this way, the cut is this way. There are 2 parts now, right? Now this leads to 2 small particles having half centimeter cube, but there are 2 surfaces, extra surfaces, which will be coming into picture, right? For this block there will be 1 centimeter square more area. For the front block also there will be 1 centimeter square area. So if the same material is existing in 2 pieces, then it will be having area as 8 centimeter square, but the total mass remains the same, 10 grams. Then if I want to calculate specific surface area, which is surface area divided by unit mass, then it will be 0.8. So 0.8 centimeter square per gram it will be, because mass is remaining the same, area is increased. Now if you go on cutting it into smaller and smaller particle, I am talking about centimeter, which is a big size. We are talking about microns, that is 10 raised to minus 3. So if it is broken into very small particles like that, and then even smaller than that, this area increases to a very large extent, wherein when the particle becomes too small in size, its surface forces are more predominant than its mass. Hope you can understand my point here. When the particle becomes very small, its surface forces are more predominant than its own mass, because of that its own weight. So gravitational force becomes not dominant. In clayey particles, surface forces become more predominant. That is the point to be understood. Now let us see here, clay minerals are very tiny crystalline substances. Chemically they are hydrous aluminosilicates. We'll be seeing in detail about all this aluminosilicates, and then plus metallic ions. They are flaky in structure. Consists of sheet-like things, microscopic or colloidal size. So colloidal size is microscopic, right? So it is of the order of 0.002 down size, right? 2 microns and down size. Okay. Now fundamental building blocks. Okay, as far as clay minerals are concerned, you have got fundamental building blocks as tetrahedron silica unit, octahedron silica units, right? I'll show you in next slides how exactly these units are. They come in sheet form. The way these sheets are stacked, the type of bond and different metallic ions in crystalline lattice determine. So this particular statement determine, okay, the different clay minerals. Means there are different clay minerals. What leads to different clay minerals? It is the way these sheets are stacked one another. Which sheets? Silica sheet and then gibbsite sheet, and then what is there between them, right? Metallic ions in crystalline lattice. Of course we are going to study, don't worry about that. We are going to study with pictures, etc. in detail. Okay, here clay types, the types and amount of clay mineral, the type and amount of substitution creates clay minerals with different properties. Properties affected include stickiness, plasticity, swelling, and cation exchange capacity, CEC. This cation exchange capacity is called as CEC. So it leads to 2:1 clay minerals or 1:1 clay mineral. The example of 1:1 clay mineral is a kaolinite, whereas 2:1 clay mineral is fine grained micas, smectoids, vermiculites, chlorites, etc. Okay, here it is. Phyllosilicate structure. Why it is called phyllon means leaf like, meaning leaf. Silic is flint, right? It is a mineral. Basic building blocks are these two molecules, so to say. One is called silica tetrahedron, silicate tetrahedron. Another one is called aluminium octahedron. So you can see here, centrally there is a silica, and then 4 of its charges are attracted by oxygen atoms. Okay. Now 3 of the atoms can be placed at the bottom and then 1 at the top. Okay. Now these base units, you can put it in any fashion, but we refer to this base as basal oxygens, and then the top one is called apical or apex oxygen. Right, here it is triangle. There are three triangles joined together in the form of a triangular pyramid with four corners, right? All are occupied by oxygen. Centrally there will be a silica. That's how silicate tetrahedron is. Here octahedron, it is 8 phases. Tetrahedron, there are 4 phases. 1, 2, the back face is 3, the bottom face is 4. Tetrahedron, here it is 8 phase. You can just see here centrally there is an aluminium, and in the plane of aluminium this particular square is drawn, and then above that square there is a square pyramid. Below also there is a square pyramid, right? And then all these corners are occupied by OH ions, hydroxyl ions, right? There are 6 corners, but there are 8 faces. Because of that it is octahedron. Okay, this block is like this. Now these blocks, when they come in contact with themselves, they lead to a kind of a sheet. Now this silicon tetrahedron, if you want to see, here there is a picture. Every one triangle is a one looking from the top. One tetrahedron, another tetrahedron, another tetrahedron. Like that it becomes a sheet, right? It is a sheet-like structure, right? There is a lot of void in between, of course, right? So this is how it looks. This is silicate tetrahedron. Okay. Where I was, okay. Here. Similarly, even alumina octahedron sheet will also be there. I'll be showing it now. So here, now how do clays get their charge? Unshared oxygen atoms on the edges of the clay minerals, right? Anyway, now we'll study first of all what these are. Okay, here the yellow atoms are nothing but silicates. Yellow atoms are nothing but silicates. They are there, and then at the bottom there are 3 oxygen, and then at the top there is 1 oxygen, which is this particular molecule is denoted over here. Of course, these lines are just to make you understand. There won't be any existence of lines. Centrally there is silicon, and then attach it to 4 oxygen atoms. So this is, and then like that the sheet is continuous. The sheet is continuous, which is called tetrahedron sheet, and then there is octahedron sheet. This is there, octahedron sheet, and then again there is an octahedron sheet. So the 2 octahedron sheets are sandwiching silicate tetrahedron. This is one kind of sheeting. Or here you have another one. The octahedron is sandwiched between these 2. It can be seen 2 ways. One is this one, whereas octahedron is sandwiched between tetrahedron sheet, or the sheets are, because here there is no bonding, right? It is not sandwiched. These 2 are separate, these 2 are separate. So there is a tetrahedron octahedron sheets. Like this there will be combination, right? Or this can be one sheet. So this is I'll mark it here. So this is one sheet. It is continuous horizontally. I have taken only a small piece, right? This is a separate sheet, and this is also one sheet. Like this another sheet will be existing. Please try to understand. Of course there will be more figures or photographs. Okay, here isomorphic substitution of all that we'll be seeing later, but what you have to see at this moment is there is a silicon at the bottom and then oxygens at the corner. Okay, when this central silicon cation is replaced by Mg, right, without changing the structure. That is called isomorphic. But because the two places are reduced, it becomes more negative, more negative. So whenever there is isomorphic substitution, there will be chance of going for more negative capacity of the molecule. Okay. So here I think in a better manner it is shown. There is a silicate sheet. There is a silicate sheet along with two octahedron sheets. Okay. So these yellow ones are nothing but octahedron. You can see that one, another one, and so on. And this is silica sheet. So you have silica sheet, aluminum octahedron sheet, and then again silica sheet. So there are three layers, the two layers of silica and then one layer of aluminum. Like that it is getting repeated, and these big blue balls are shown for interlayer. They may be water molecules or some metal ions or so. Okay. So here that yellow piece is nothing but alumina octahedron, whereas this grayish blue one is aluminum silicate tetrahedron. Please note on this because that is an important part here. Okay, molecular and structural arrangement will be seen like this from the top, right? Now here tetrahedron sheet, octahedron sheet, tetrahedron sheet. So this makes one sheet of silicate sheet. This is another sheet of silica tetrahedron, octahedron, silica tetrahedron. In between you have got adsorbed cations or water. This is called interlayer. This particular thing is one layer. Right, this is another layer. In between the layers you have got interlayer. So this whole thing becomes crystal, right? Now if you want to draw, how to draw? So this is one single silica tetrahedron, and then when they come together, 6 of them come together to make a basic block of silica sheet, and this is represented by a notation like this, represented by a notation like this. Simply two lines like that and then two parallel lines like a trapezium. So this simply represents silica sheet. Look at the way how it looks. Now alumina octahedron will be having, and then of number of them when they join, obviously they make a sheet, and this particular sheet of alumina octahedron is known as Gibbsite sheet, that is silica sheet, and this is represented by a plane rectangle. This is by trapezium. Okay. Okay. Two layer types, that is 1:1, one tetrahedral, one octahedral. Okay, and then just now I have told you this is, it is becoming one sheet and this is becoming one. So 1:1, 1:1 sheet. Now if alumina octahedron is sandwiched between tetrahedron sheets, then it becomes 2:1 mineral. Okay. So here how to show kaolinite is shown like this: aluminum octahedron silica sheet as shown here, right? This is aluminium, this is silica sheet. Again it repeats, but in between you will be having a hydrogen bonding, which is a strong bond. So this example is China clay. This is called 1:1 silicate, right? The thickness of one combination of a layer is of the order of 7.2 angstrom. 1 angstrom is 10⁻⁻10 meters. Okay, So because there is a strong bonding, it is stable, water cannot enter in between. So this is the point where one has to understand this between the sheet over here, the water is not easily allowed to enter because there is a strong bond, right? So symbol for basic structural unit is this aluminum sheet and then silica sheet. The thickness of this, each layer is 7 point, but how it exists, you have seen that it will be of 100 to 1000 angstrom. Lengthwise it will be 1000 to 20,000 angstrom lateral size. Because of the smaller size, the specific surface area is too high and it is of the order of 15 meters square per gram. Yes, I mean 15 meters square per only 1 gram of that, right? So because of that, it will be having -1 to -15 centimole per kg as the charge because of unshared oxygen atoms. It will be having surfacially minus charges, and then at the edges you may find it positive charges. Okay, with this we'll stop. We'll continue in the next class.